Hello, I'm Mark Pierce. A lot of you will know me from my YouTube channel, Mark P. Muzz, which you're probably watching this on now. Professional hobbyist, as it were, i.e. keen, amateur, everything. Yeah, one of the things I am is an amateur photographer, but very much amateur. Okay, I try not to take it too seriously, although I'm very serious about, getting the results that I want. But if it doesn't quite happen, it doesn't quite happen, sort of thing, and it's more for enjoyment. This is Marc Jacobs. Also has a YouTube channel, but there is his website. One of the things he does, he holds down many jobs. He's a professional is our Mark. And yeah, one of his jobs is a portrait photographer. Does a lot of work with gigs. Very recently worked with Paloma Faith. Took some official shots of her, which maybe some of you will see from her current tour that she's on now. And runs his own portrait business in Essex, in the UK. The venue today is Camden Town in North London, where the two of us have decided to meet up and go and do some street photography.
Hi, welcome to Camden. We're trying out a couple of cameras for street photography this afternoon here in Camden Lock. The weather's not being particularly kind to us, but we're getting there. Firstly, we're trying out the EPL3. This is an older model, a couple of years old now, but still very, very good. Very, very current. Bargain if you can find one on the internet. They're going for about 150, 200 quid at the moment on the net, which is great. Interchangeable lens. So firstly, we're trying out the interchangeable lenses, the kit lenses that come with it, which is the 12 to 42. That's that one. The other lenses we'll be trying out, this is another 12 to 42 for the EPL5, but I'll come on to that in a second. On this EPL5, because this is the more current model, great camera still. We've got the 45mm f1.8. It's one of the sharpest lenses that Olympus actually do.
And that's very reasonable on Amazon now.
Yeah, 200 quid on
200 quid on Amazon.
So there we go. Great for portraits. Don't forget these double up. So it says 45mm there. On a micro 4/3 mirrorless camera, which these are, that doubles up to 90mm. Then we've got one of my favourite little lenses. This is the 60mm macro. It's a great little lens, not just for macro, but it also works very, very well for portraits as well, which is why I like it so much. So yeah, we'll be trying that out. So don't forget, this goes to 120, this goes to 90, this is basically 24 to 44.
Is it 24 or 28?
14, no, 28.
28 to 42.
Yeah.
28 to 42.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Bilby. Your maths lessons were fantastic. So yeah.
Let's have a look at the decorative ring.
Lens.
Have you got the decorative ring on yours?
I haven't. No,
I have a blue one.
Because that's just plastic. I took that off.
Broke it.
It did actually come with it.
Yeah.
Of course, we're using the little filter there as well, UV filter. Not really a lot to say about the UV filters really, apart from they just protect the lens.
I have no UV filter on mine, but I have a lens cap which I haven't lost yet, which is a bit of a miracle for me.
Yep.
Okie dokie.
So, yes, EPL5. EPL3, this is interchangeable flash, by the way.
Yep.
It does come off if you just
somehow
pull that off there. Press the little button and it pulls off. So you can actually put proper flashes on these cameras as well.
Yeah.
So we'll put that back on.
Or you can put a viewfinder on there, an interchangeable viewfinder-y thing.
Viewfinders are great. That's my only concern with my EPL5. In bright sunlight, the light really does tend to come off of the back screen. So I did actually think about getting the viewfinder for it, but it's money at the end of the day. It's you're looking 150 quid for that.
Is it 150 quid?
It is.
Yeah.
149.
Yeah. The VF4 is the new one.
Yeah. I was looking at the VF3.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the setup for today.
Yep.
So we're going to finish our coffees and we're going to head off.
I need a Starbucks to get me through this.
Yeah, and they've spelt my name wrong. Yeah, but nothing changes.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So shortly after we shot that video, we saw this chap. Well, I saw this chap because from where I was sitting at the table, there he was, and he was pointing his camera in my direction, and I smiled at him and said, "Yes, you can," sort of thing, and he took his photograph. So after that little moment, then I turned my head and saw this guy looking the other way from me out at the Weeping Willow, and his hair made this fantastic kind of contrast to the Weeping Willow behind him. And just as he turned round, I took this picture. I used the XZ1 for this because I'd just finished shooting that video. We're just going to do a very quick video test because those of you who follow my channel will know that the first video I performed, where I performed on the piano with the EPL3, you got this horrible noise, not unlike the noise that is going on in the background here. So we're going to test it with this wonderful 45mm lens and see whether or not that makes a difference, okay? And I'm moving back because you obviously haven't focused each other. It's fine. But I'm touching this camera now, the EPL5, and it's a wonderful, sensual thing. It actually has a nice little rubber grip as well, which is fabulous. Right, we'll have to shout for this bit because we've got a 45mm lens on here, and I'm too beautiful for it, so we have to stand back a little bit. But yeah, we'll see whether or not that makes a lot of noise, and yeah, if it doesn't, then I'm afraid that will be the new lens that I will be buying with my pocket money in the future. Right, see you later. So we're having a wander round, and as we're having a wander round, we spot these two women here, rather imposing looking women. On my Flickr site I've called my shot of them the women in black, because they're like the men in black, as it were. So I took that photograph, very discreetly, and then Mark went and asked them if we could possibly take their photograph. And one of the things that you can do, if they say, yeah, you can, by all means kind of thing, you can politely ask them to move, and that's what we did. And so they're, rather than having this kind of lunch specials in the background here, which doesn't quite go with we're mean and tough independent women, we've now got them in a less distracting background. And that is one of Mark's favourite shots. He tells me his home is like a gallery full of his work, and he wants to enlarge that and pop that on his wall as well. As we're walking around the streets, this couple here had a little kissy on the street, and I'm really attracted to taking photographs of people who obviously like one another. One of my favourite jokes when I ask people to pose is, look like you like one another, because they all want to stand so far away from each other. But this couple, they had their little kissy, and I thought, oh, that's sweet. And I put my camera to my eye, and they saw it, and they just very quickly posed for me. And she's still holding his hand, and he's leaning in towards her, and it's such a beautiful moment. And they smiled. I took my photograph, and then they burst out laughing, and off they went. Not really a word said between us, but it was just a really happy moment. And if I have, there are two moments that stood out to me. It's just like the ones that I'll take away from today. So yeah, it's one of my favourite shots of the day. It's not the shot of the day. It's not absolutely perfect. I'm not majorly impressed with the free cash here signs, but yeah, it's just a lovely moment. And here's another lovely moment of Mark's here. I just think, this is an absolute classic moment here. She's looking in her fags, and I reckon she's saying, "Did you take my last fag?" And he's having a good grin and a good giggle, because he probably has. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go down, we're going to see the Camden Market horses. Everybody needs to experience the Camden Market horses. It's literally just down there, and yeah, here we go.
Right, we're going. God, I feel like Mr. Digital Rev at the moment.
Yeah.
Thing is, does Mr. Digital Rev feel like me? He never gets stuck in crowds, does he? And there we go, Horse Tunnel Market. It's a good job it's not Horse Tunnel Horse Piss, isn't it? Oh, and there's a horse rearing its legs. But I've just given myself a nightmare now because I've turned the video up the other way. And so for the horses, now you see it's very interesting because, like, you know, we've themed this work, you know, humans in Camden, and so the horses, you know, do they really count? Well, I don't know really, but yeah, it's quite telling really that of the hundreds of shots we took, neither of us, you know, and we decided independently, you know, what we're going to put on Flickr, and neither of us put any horses on Flickr. Yeah, this one though is one that I just think is rather funny because I think the horse looks, you know, like he's really up to mischief, and so I called it "And a Horse Came to Play." More of the guy in the background later.
Now we need to do something really special. We need to crank the ISO up to 1600 to get ready for them grainy shots.
So for some grainy shots, or at least a grainy shot of mine, now I set my ISO to auto, and outside, at this point in the day, it was very grey and overcast, but the camera was still choosing to use ISO 200. And indoors, 1600, which I think is where I've got it capped. It can go higher than that, but in terms of auto mode and choosing the auto one, I don't really want it to choose very much above 1600, because then the pictures get slightly grainy, although I did take some you know, higher ISO than that. But yeah, I think this has worked very well. Now you see, you get yeah, this kind of photographic cliche of the photographer taking a photograph of somebody taking a photograph, and it can be overdone. And I think, you know, there's got to be something else that's going, you know, into the back, you know, into the mix as well. And look at this guy's pose here. Everything about this guy's pose says, look, everybody, I know how to take photographs. I'm a pro. Look at me working, everybody. You know, from the sort of slightly S-shaped of his body, to the look on his face, to the way he's holding his camera. You know, he's got it nailed down to a T. And this lady here that Mark took, you know, she's just obviously having so much fun taking her photograph. It's just, you know, again, it's just one of those lovely moments to watch. So going back to the slightly grainy shots, because this one's not particularly grainy. I suppose you know, there's a little bit of grain in the noise and stuff, but in the background in the bokeh. But here we go back to one of Mark's slightly grainy shots here. I saw this couple as well and took photographs of them, but he's using you know, these prime lenses that have very long focal lengths for you know, particularly for portrait work. And you know, I found it rather difficult to isolate this couple from the bin that was to the lady's left. But Mark's managed there brilliantly. Okay, some of my grainy shots here. Now you see, one of the people that I really admire in photography is Cartier-Bresson. Okay, and there are kind of two things that I admire about him, besides this thing that he has about the decisive moment, which we'll come on to later. But when they sort of, you know, publish his work, I have a book of his portraits called Tête à Tête, and the pictures on the page are kind of laid out so that they all have some compositional elements in common. And as well as that, all his portraits here are sort of imbued with with dignity. You know, it doesn't matter whether he's taking pictures of whores looking out of their sort of bodegas in Chile or somewhere, or whether it's, you know, the deepest philosopher or something like that. You know, they all look like very important people. And you know, obviously my bronze statue, yes, she's very important because somebody made her and they've done that to her. But then I saw the lady very shortly after I took the bronze statue. I put her in the same place, okay, and I've kind of like turned the picture on its end, really, because, you know, you have the man in bokeh sort of to the statue's left, okay, and here, although it's not quite in the same place, we have, you know, the statue doing the same thing in the photograph of the lady. And, you know, so I've got my compositional elements there, you know, that are unifying these two pictures. And I think, you know, there's a certain amount of dignity in those people's faces. Right, so now we are in the smaller part of Camden Market, but as they say, it ain't size, it's what you do with it that counts. And what we did in that small market area, or what I chose to do anyway, was to create some bokeh, and some proper bokeh this time. Okay, people say that the Olympus 4/3 or Micro 4/3 system, as it is nowadays, can't do bokeh because of that small sensor. Well, it can, peoples, okay, and there's an example to prove it. Those dangly necklace things were on sale everywhere, and I took a photo of them, and, you know, if I hadn't bokeh'd it out, then those would have been lost. So, you know, wide aperture, zoom lens, boom, bokeh, and it works brilliantly. What Mark chose to do in the small market area was to find somebody who was on his own and photographed him. And it was quite telling, really, that, you know, Camden Lock, the whole area is just full of bustle. It's a very trendy area to be, and, you know, has some of the trendy shops like Cyberdog and, you know, these vintage stores and everything, and it's bustling with people. And so it was quite, you know, nice to find people taking that time just to, you know, have their own space. And he's obviously found it. And the fish and chip sign there is acting as his natural barrier to kind of like the rest of the world there. It's almost as if he doesn't want anybody there to disturb him. He's got his music on, he's got his ciggy, he's got his dog lying next to him, and yeah, nothing's going to disturb him. And Mark has chosen here to post-capture, turn that into black and white, to sort of further sort of enhance that solitary mood there. And yeah, it works very well indeed. Now, you see, I'm the kind of person that, you know, I step out, you know, and do a bit of street photography, and I've decided I'm going to do black and whites, or I'm going to do colours. And for me, Camden Market just suggested colour. Mark doesn't appear to be too fussed either way, although he's very sensitive to colour, as you'll see, and we'll talk about later when you see some of his other work. Here's one of my street photos. This photograph is a very mundane scene. Again, it's a person taking a photograph. But there are so many unifying elements in this picture that draw it all together, okay? And the key to the photograph is actually the sunglass rack on the right and the traffic light post on the left, because the two of them, you know, together with the umbrella at the top, are making this kind of frame where everything else is happening. We have the sunglasses, she's wearing glasses. The camera is another optic, okay? We have a cigarette there that she's holding in her hand, and she looks like she's about to do damage to the person walking the other way. And, you know, were it not for the fact that he was in bokeh, which is suggesting a certain amount of 3D-ness, if he'd been any sharper, you know, he would have almost looked like his eyes were sort of heading for the end of her cigarette. And yeah, you know, again, very mundane scene, very ordinary scene, but I think, you know, it's the composition. There's been no cropping you know, with that picture. I don't think I cropped any of the pictures that I'm showing you today. I do crop pictures, but you know, I always feel a sense of pride if I've got a good composition and I haven't had to do anything like that to it. So yeah, I think that one works. I like it. And then, people, it started to rain, and up come the umbrellas, and yeah, you know, we don't want to get wet, don't want to ruin your camera by getting it absolutely soaked. The EPL cameras for Olympus, they sit in the middle of the pen range. Okay, I think you know, some of the higher up cameras are weatherproofed, but these ones, you know, I think they'll stand a certain amount of, you know, ordinary drizzly rain and that sort of thing. But it was, you know, really coming on to hack it down. And yeah, this is Marc's take on the umbrellas. Okay, again, these two people finding their moment. Okay, but you know, look, the subject is black. Okay, and it's in very stark relief to the colour around them. And look, what's he seen? Blue and green. Okay, so that there's nothing there that is going to take your eye away from this couple here. And you know, it's a beautiful moment from them. And Marc has this way of seeing this limited colour palette, which you know, it just brings it home to you. It's lovely. It's lovely. My umbrella picture, because 84mm in 35mm camera terms is the closest my kit lens is going to go to anything. So I have to get more of a scene in here. Okay, so I've caught an awful lot of bustle and crowd here. Okay, but you know, something, again, you know, just taking a picture of a crowd of people could be a mess. Okay, but this has worked very well, and it's, you know, again, you know, like just like, you know, with my picture of the lady taking the photograph with the shades behind her, you know, it's those bits of those sort of compositional sort of instincts within you. Once you've done it enough times, you will learn when it's happening. You will still have the hundreds of times where you take photographs and it just doesn't work, but you will spot when it works, and then you will find more times where you can sort of say, right, that was right, I'll do it again, I'll do it again, I'll do it again. It's just like, you know, anything, it's practice that kind of makes perfect. And you know, the good street photographers, the Lartigues, Duanos, you know, Cartier-Bressons and whatever, they had it down to a T. But what they don't show you is all the bits where they tried and it didn't work. And, you know, and so you think, oh, they get it right every time. When in fact, actually, they don't. And you know, this is one where I got it right. And here we have these two people that are kind of pushing their way the other way, and it's adding a sense of balance and symmetry to the photograph. Okay, which again kind of draws you in to the red hair or reddy blonde hair and the red and yellowy kind of covering on the other lady there. And you know, again, that it just works as a beautiful photograph. So because it was raining, we went and had another cup of coffee and a sarnie, and I started chimping, and I started worrying about the things which I've just told you not to worry about, i.e. all those misses where you're looking at the photographs on the back of your camera and you're saying, oh, that wasn't so good. Oh dear, I didn't notice that bit there. Oh, they're not sharp, kind of thing. And I started to lose my bottle. And it's a very dangerous thing to lose at anything. You know, you're in the middle of, you know, a game of football or tennis or whatever it is that you do, and you're on a roll, and then suddenly something happens to make you kind of, you know, go off kilter a little bit. And yeah. So from about this point in the afternoon, my photography started sort of, you know, taking a bit of a downer. Okay, we both took photographs of those people. We asked them, had a wee chat with them. I said to the guy, oh, you got, you know, brilliant hairstyle, whatever. And, you know, that kind of sort of swayed them. And we were taking photographs before they could even say yes. And, you know, for me, even though I was having a downer, those photographs work for me as well. So, you know, I think I might have popped those two on Flickr somewhere. So yeah. Now, because I'm on a downer now, we are underneath a covering, like a sort of a walkway that's covered, sheltering from the rain. My kit lens, which even at its minimum zoom is only f3.5 at its widest end, as opposed to Mark's prime lenses, which, you know, for his business, he's got to have, you know, decent optics on his camera, with, you know, f1.8 kind of thing. You know, that 45mm f1.8 is a beautiful lens. You know, it'll let a lot of light in as well in low light. And so he was having a fabulous time, coupled with the fact that his EPL5, the key difference, or one of the key differences between the EPL3 and the EPL5 is the fact that the EPL5 has a touch screen, so that you can focus and take your shots just by touching the screen like you can on a camera phone. Okay, except that, you know, those lenses, you know, are real killers. You know, on a camera phone you've got a little bit of plastic, you know, and that is not going to cope in that kind of weather, you know, regardless of, you know, how discreetly you're taking photographs. So he's standing around, you know, just looking like he's playing with his camera. He's in fact taking loads of shots of people. Okay, so the next few photographs are going to be, you know, shots of his. Okay, another black and white here, very traditional looking old man, again finding his little moment of solitude. This guy, on the other hand, I took shots of him in a wider setting. He's absolutely hacked off completely at the rain. It's mucked up his hairstyle. You know, he's got to try and sort it all out. And what on earth must I look like here with my soaking wet hair, kind of thing, you know? And, you know, the shock on his face is almost palpable there. And these two were so in love. And look at this limited colour palette again. You know, you've essentially got monochrome and orange there, and, you know, it's absolutely beautiful. You know, the orange in the background inside the shop, the orange drink that they're drinking, the orangey kind of light reflected on the girl's hair. It's absolutely beautiful. And those two were just, you know, so into one another that, you know, it's just made an absolutely beautiful shot there. Okay, so, you know, well done, Mark.
We're under the main. This is the railway bridge in Camden, and yeah, it's been a good day. And, yeah, we're going to carry on. We're going to do a little bit more.
Yes.
And then we'll sign off in a little while. So yeah, here we go again. Trying to avoid the rain, of course. Yes.
Yep. But out in the rain, you get some brilliant colours.
Yeah,
you get some brilliant colours.
Cheers, guys.
See you later. Tras. Okay, so now we're just going to I'm just going to present some of our sort of more random photographs that have worked well, regardless of whatever point in the day they were taken, because quite frankly, I can't remember. I took so many photographs, and trying to link it into a narrative is not particularly easy, but here, you know, I saw red ginger, and just, you know, makes a brilliant you know, combination there, brilliant colour combination. And, you know, I'm using about 70mm on my zoom lens there, 70mm in 35mm terms, which makes, you know, that kind of focal length on a film SLR will give you, you know, a nice environmental portrait. This guy has chosen to sort of position himself among the mannequins in order to achieve his little bit of solitude there. And if I'd gone much closer, I could have taken a couple of steps closer, but I just didn't want to disturb the concentration on his face. He's obviously very deep in thought there. And yeah, lovely photo. And this other kind of random shot that I took here was you know, these two lads slouching away. Now, you know, we're talking, you know, composition elements here, you know, and, you know, one of the ways of doing that is to think of the rule of thirds, which is, you know, how human beings, you know, see good pictures. The rule of thirds is essentially to divide your picture mentally into a noughts and crosses board. You'll have a square in the middle, and at any point on the corners of that square in the middle, if you place something interesting there, then the eye will be drawn to it. And here we have, in, you know, kind of the top right corner, as it were, we have 4 heads. Okay, we have these 2 lads that are sitting, you know, kind of like, you know, trying to be a bit manly, and, you know, I mean in kind of like the in a negative sense of the word kind of thing, you know, tough, proving themselves kind of thing here, you know, slouching away in this kind of, you know, very belligerent style, really. That's the word I'm after, belligerent. And we have 2 ladies behind showing us how to sit properly. And it's funny. Okay, a couple of Marc's other random shots of the day. This lady could almost come from, you know, some, you know, film shot by someone like Duffy or something like that from the 60s. You know, with, she's, you know, so vintagely fashioned, as it were, from the colour of her lipstick, from her hat, and her sort of black and white checkery patterny things on her scarf and on her skirt. And, you know, it's beautiful, and you can almost imagine, you know, the 60s as she's strolling along here. Camden, you know, has a wonderful history in, you know, contemporary, you know, fashion, sorry, fashion and music, and, you know, and there it's just recognised in that photograph. And I reckon that, you know, if you'd placed that picture, you know, in a newspaper, and that had been, you know, a celeb, you know, if it had been Lady Gaga walking down there or whatever, it would have been, you know, an absolute icon. Okay, and this lady, for me, kind of, you know, unifies other elements of the day that aren't necessarily in that photograph. You know, she almost looks like one of the mannequins that were everywhere, you know, and, you know, the tipping down with rain, the umbrella, you know, the really lovely people that were hanging around there. There was very few people that, you know, didn't want their photograph taken. And, you know, when you see them, you know, and, you know, sometimes they know you're taking a photograph, sometimes they don't, and they just think it's funny, and that, you know, and, you know, most of the time they're happy to do it. A few market stall people didn't want their photos taken, but, you know, probably because they were up to no good or something. But you know, by and large, it was a really happy place, and there, you know, it's just this happy picture, and I like it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I chose 2 shots of the day for us. And here they are, in no particular order. My shot of the day. As I say, you know, the people around there were just so happy to be photographed, and I'm, you know, despite how I might seem on, you know, to other people, I'm a very introverted person, and for me to go and chat to someone and ask to take their photograph, for me it's a big event. But I've got a pal who is well into kind of, you know, piercings and tattoos and that sort of thing, and I thought I'll take that photograph and show them. And so there you go. I had a chat with these people, admired this guy's tattoos, and he's there and he's showing off his neck and showing off his, you know, earlobe piercing or whatever, and you know, we're just having a good laugh just for a couple of minutes. She's enjoying it. She's slightly bokeh'd because, or defocused, as it were, not really bokeh, but she's slightly defocused because, you know, the idea is to, you know, get these tattoos and piercings and things. You know, that's a blouse that she's wearing, but it kind of complements the tattoos on his neck, and you've got a nice little diagonal going between them there. And, you know, for me, it was a wonderful moment. You know, I made the photograph happen by asking them to pose in the way that they did, and, you know, by choosing the settings on my camera to get the effect that I wanted. And yeah, it's worked, and I like it. Marc J's shot of the day here. You know, all of his, you know, very controlled use of colour is just coming to the foreground here. We have, you know, all of the non-important elements of this photograph are monochrome, mainly white, and you have the starkness of the contrast between, you know, their coloured clothing there. And as well as that, you know, again, we've got a couple that are absolutely into each other. Those mobile phones, everybody had their blooming mobile phone, and it annoys me, and it probably annoys you as well, that, you know, people, you know, are just, you know, so less sociable these days. But here, for a few moments, he's chosen to concentrate on his girlfriend, you know, and, you know, check that she's enjoying whatever it is that she's eating there. And the look of compassion and caring on his face is lovely. And so for me, that one is Marc's shot of the day. If you want to know more about us, people, then do find us on Flickr. My Flickr is mpierce661. And Marc Jacobs is, Marc J's is Marc Jacobs on Flickr, so you can see us there. If you want to see what the Olympus cameras can do, find a few of the Olympus groups. Just do a group search for Olympus. There are loads of groups on there of people's photographs for the Olympus stuff. You know, they are kind of out on their own. They're not Canon and Nikon, you know, these huge manufacturers of cameras. You know, yes, they're well known, but they don't kind of sell on the same levels as Canon and Nikon do. And for me, it's an injustice really, because the Micro Four Thirds system is well able to compete with any of those cameras, and the fact that they're small, and quite often it's the Olympus innovations that, you know, are then suddenly seen on these other cameras. You know, Olympus were the first to have like the dust shaker offer on the sensor, the first people to do live view on a DSLR via a screen, because at the time of, you know, that DSLRs sort of were first kind of introduced, they were based on the traditional sort of pentaprism kind of model, and the screen on the back was only for changing your settings and for reviewing your pictures. You know, Olympus changed all that, and, you know, gave us a compact camera style screen on the back to compose with. And, you know, this is all technology that couldn't be done with a DSLR before, and Olympus did it, and other manufacturers followed. And, you know, so I think that, you know, they're well worth, you know, considering if you're, you know, wanting to upgrade your camera or whatever. Become an Olympus fan, people. Anyway, ta-ra, hope you enjoyed it.